Kelly Kleiman here in beautiful Camarillo, California. Today we're going to talk to Mr. Rusty West. He is the chairman and president of Market Scan. He's got a lot to say. We've got a lot to learn. Let's get going. So here I am with Rusty West. We are here in Market Scan and we're going to have a little bit of fun. But first we have to have an explanation as to what is behind us. It's an amazing story, Rusty. Give it to me.
So a bunch of years ago we were really active in racing, and this car won the Rolex Series Championship in 2002, and we raced it again in 2003. In 2004, during a race, the engine blew up, and the downside of racing these cars is it cost more to redo the engine than the car's worth. So it literally sat in our warehouse as a spare parts car for a dozen years. And when we moved in here, we yanked the engine out and made a conference table out of the engine and put the car up on the wall.
Yeah, I've got a Velvet Elvis on mine, so.
It's with the playing poker.
Yeah, playing poker, exactly, yeah. More power to you. Let's talk about the early days. You grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I'd love to know a little bit about what you were interested in back then and what floated your boat.
So, grew up in the car business. My dad was in the car business long before he ever met my mom. And so been in and around cars and motorsports and stuff my whole life. I grew up racing motorcycles, and that's pretty much what fueled the passion to get into the car racing.
Yeah, the need for speed.
Yeah.
What was the first piece of code you ever wrote?
Ooh, so in sixth grade, I think, the school I went to had one Apple IIe, right? Really cool piece of equipment. And so I wrote a program that was a little graphic program that was a dump truck that would back up and the thing would tip and the rocks would fall out and it would go down and go forward. And I got an A, so it was great.
I was catching lizards.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Back in the day. So how did you end up working with your dad before Market Scan was conceived?
So my dad was one of the pioneers of leasing, literally put auto leasing on the map. He wrote Ford Motor Credit's what was called Retail Lease Plan, which became the Red Carpet Lease. And so my whole time growing up in the car business was mainly around leasing. And when I was in high school, my dad had several different lending institutions that he worked with to fund leases. And I wrote a software package for him when I was in, I think, 9th grade, 10th grade, that would take the different lending institutions that he had so he could figure out which one had the best program. And literally that is the very, very first version of what Market Scan is today.
So I'd like to know what interested you in computer programming and computer science way before it was considered trendy.
I had a knack for it. It kind of made sense to me, you know. It's very linear and it's like building. You know, I love, my therapy is literally doing mechanical stuff. Like bringing the car in was a project that a really good friend of mine, Joel Littman, who actually is over here heckling us, helped me with. But programming is kind of the same thing, you know, creating the building blocks and just putting stuff together. So it's always been fun for me.
That brings to mind another question regarding what triggered you to apply Scholastic focus to your dad's profession.
So that wasn't actually how it worked out. When I graduated high school, you go way back, my intention originally was to race motocross professionally. And that's what I thought I was going to do. A couple stints in a wheelchair ended that dream. Been in a wheelchair 3 times because of those goofy things. So with age comes a roll cage, right? But so when I graduated high school, I went to college and originally planned on getting a business degree and opening up a car stereo shop. I installed car stereos all through high school and college, and but got more intrigued with the mathematics and the computer science. I actually have degrees in math, computer science, and physics. I really enjoyed the studying, and when I graduated college, my penance for my college education was writing a software package for my dad's leasing company.
Let's talk about your dad for a minute here. He had natural skills as a master salesman. He was a phenomenal marketer. You, coupled with this incredible technical acumen, were sort of a unstoppable 1-2 punch. It was a no-brainer. Was your coupling conceived? Was it intentional, or was it more of an organic process?
So it was kind of a little bit of both, actually. When I graduated, I was literally sitting down having a beer with my dad, and he says, if we could take all the information from all these different lending institutions and manufacturers and everything, and put it into a database and print a book once a week with which lending institutions got the best program for each vehicle, we could sell it and we could make a lot of money. And so I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And we did. And of course, it grew a lot from there because we do a lot more than just print books. But
With all that interesting background, I'd love to know when Market Scan was originally established.
September 15th of 1988.
Tell us about how your dad and you came up with the concept of Market Scan, and who named it Market Scan. I think it's an outstanding name.
So again, we were kind of kicking around the idea of printing a book. In the Southeast, there's a used car book, Black Book Used Car Guide, and every used car manager had one, and they flip through it and figure out what the cars were worth. So we figured we'd print a book you could flip through and find out what payment should be. And it ended up turning into a full-blown software package with a user interface and all kinds of stuff associated with it. So original name of our product or company was AutoScan, and we had a name conflict with another company. So Market Scan Information Systems was the second choice, which we like better, obviously.
Was birthed. A great name. Let's talk a little bit about your move to California. You were established in Georgia. You're doing fairly well there, and then something came about to prompt the move. What was that?
So we had a lending institution rep who was a friend of ours, and he used to come by all the time, and we'd let him use the product so he could see where his offerings were compared to his competitors. And he says, I've got a good friend of mine who has a marketing company in California. You should go talk to him. He could sell your product a lot in California. So my dad and I flew out to California in I think maybe April or May of 1990, and they had 7 presentations set up for us, demonstrations set up for us in 4 days. And we got 7 contracts and checks with the promise that if we don't come to California, we'll give you your money back. And the best month we had ever had was 4 deals. So my dad and I are looking, and at the time there was 240 car dealerships in the state of Georgia, and there was 576 in Los Angeles County alone. And we're like, yeah, that's where we're going. And November 19th actually of 1990, I had pawned the title to my car for some seed money and got on an airplane and moved to California.
And you moved to Thousand Oaks. What prompted the move to TO?
So the guy who had the marketing company, his office was in Westlake Village, and his house was in Thousand Oaks, and I literally slept on his couch for a couple months until saved up enough money to go rent a place of my own. So, and just literally been in this area ever since.
So let's talk about the company growth. You came to California. You had a handful of clients. What did that growth look like?
Like a heartbeat, actually. So we hit the ground running in November of 90, and it was amazing. Everybody we showed the product to bought it, pretty much. And we had like a 95% closing ratio, and we were booked 2-3 demos every single day. And then the first Gulf War started, and it stopped. Marketing company we were working with went out of business, and we had to regroup and start over. From there, it was a slow growth, and then we had this huge run where we had our sales were tripled every year for many years. We went from 100,000 in sales to 300 to 1 million to 9 million to 27 million to 81 million, just boom, 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 boom. And then second Gulf War started. September 11th happened, and it was another big drop. And through all of it, we've survived, and we had to reinvent ourselves a few times. And now we're doing about as good as we've ever done. So it's been a hell of a ride, but it's been an awful lot of fun.
Lease Profit was the product that put Market Scan on the map. Tell us a little bit about Lease Profit and how did that work for you?
So that was our first product. That's what we started with in Atlanta, and that's what we came to with California. And literally we solved a problem that had not been solved before, which was what's the scientifically perfect solution in the lease scenario. And it was great. We had the only product of its kind. Everyone we showed it to needed it, and it was very successful. And we sold $500 million of that product over a 20-year span. So
I'd say that's pretty successful, pretty impressive. Let's talk about your relationship with your dad and your partnership with your father. It was very special. How was Market Scan positioned at the time of his passing in 2005?
So, interesting question. My dad was addicted to this business. He very, very passionate about it. He loved the automotive industry, loved leasing, and loved just the whole process of building a business. He was a 70 to 80 hour a week guy every week. And then in 2000, he got really sick and was literally out of the office. Maybe 40, 50 hours over the next 5 years he was able to spend actually engaged with the business. And that hurt the business a lot because he was the mastermind behind one half of the business, everything that had to do with marketing, sales, dealing with all the accountants, employees, everything. My specialty was just dealing with the technology, and he ran everything else.
I have a question to follow up, and that would be, what business management changes did you make after he left?
I floundered for a little bit. My dad stayed engaged while he was sick, but he wasn't really capable of doing it. So, I mean, that obviously hurt us. And then when he passed away, I had to take over all the things that that was his specialty, and that was very tough for me. So I had a very good friend and longtime customer of mine who was the president of Mercedes-Benz Beverly Hills for many years. They were a customer of ours, who had sold that store and bought another Mercedes-Benz store, and that didn't work out. Him and his partner were kind of like, oil and water. So he had retired and played golf for about 2 weeks and decided not to retire anymore. We brought him in as our CEO, and he took over kind of where my dad left off, and it's been a wonderful partnership since then.
Since the inception, Market Scan has been consistent in its core focus regarding its products and the customers that they target. How has the company evolved from the early days of your partnership with your father to the current time with you as chairman and president of the company?
Our focus has always been the aggregation of data and the ability to take this super complex data set and make sense of it. For the first 25-ish years of our existence, we marketed products exclusively to car dealerships and to lending institutions. In the last maybe 4 years, we've opened up that technology to power our competitors, right? The original philosophy was, if we can't beat them, join them. So we started powering a few companies that had products that were dealer-facing products. And then digital retailing, online digital retailing, really just kind of took off. And we were in a position where we had the only API that could calculate penny certain payments, and it was ready to go. And that has completely reshaped our business. It's in 3 years, it's 80% of the business that we do. It's far surpassed all of the other products that we sell combined. And it's been so much fun.
Let's discuss Market Scan's mission and your vision. What are you trying to accomplish from a business perspective, and what's the there, so to speak, of what the kind of difference you're trying to make in the automotive industry?
The whole company was founded under the premise that there's only one scientifically perfect solution to any automotive transaction, and any solution that's less than perfect simply won't do. And so that's our goal, is to provide perfect solutions to all these transactions. The result of that is a consumer can shop online with any technology that we power, and we're powering 40 or 50 different technologies right now. And they can get quoted a payment online that's an accurate payment that's identical to the payment that they'll see every step of their journey if every technology that they're touching is powered by Market Scan's MScan API product, including in the dealership. The goal is to have consumers have a perfect experience, have lending institutions have the ability to create programs that can be shared with the consumer that the consumer wants to take advantage of, and have the dealership have the ability to replicate that in the store to the penny when the consumer comes in.
We're going to get into the product slate in a couple of moments. Let's talk about core values. And I'm just kind of curious if the current core values are the same as they were, a virtual reflection of the same core values at the point of inception, or has something changed over the years?
They're the same, and core values I think are the ones that my dad beat into me when I was young. Hard work, honesty, morality, but also
Humor.
yeah, humor. I've been doing this a little over 30 years, and I come in every day not because I have to, but because I love to. And we've got a great team of people that we work with. A lot of our employees have been with us over 15 years. And then we also have a whole bunch of new team members because we're growing. But it's got to be a fun place to work, so we work hard, play hard.
What adjustments has the company made over the years in terms of strategic direction to stay ahead of the curve, so to speak?
The biggest shift for us was there's been two, right? Originally, all of the data that we aggregated manually. When I say we, in the early days, it was me, so I never slept. And as the company grew, at one time we had well over 100 people, maybe 150 people in a data entry department, manually entering data. I'm sitting here doing this with my hand, manually entering data. And that was very expensive, and it was time-consuming and prone to errors, right? So if data was entered manually, it had to be done twice. So we undertook a monstrous project, which was let's automate the aggregation of this data electronically, which meant we had to literally write programs that could ingest the data from every format that was out there, and we did, and that took lots of millions of dollars and lots of years to accomplish. So when we had that, then we ended up with a system where we've got maybe 20 highly talented analysts that manage these software packages that we've developed, and we continue to evolve those products as new lenders come into the play. But we've got a much smaller team. It gives us a much more accurate, much more timely, and much more robust data set than we could ever do manually. And then the second big shift for us was making the transition from powering our own products to powering other companies' products, other technologies' products.
So, with the new automation, how have new product offerings come about? Faster, quicker, better.
Yeah, so it's been interesting, right? We when we figured out how to aggregate everything electronically, it freed us up to do other things. And as we've gone through the process, we learned from a digital retailing standpoint, the requirements are different than serving the needs of just say a car dealership. So we have to always take into consideration the lending institutions, the manufacturers, all the rebates and incentives, and all the municipalities for the taxation. But the one piece that we kind of took for granted with a dealer-facing product that we realized was never exposed to digital retailing products, to other technologies, was the dealer class of data. So we built a system where we can aggregate all the terms and conditions under which a dealership's willing to sell their vehicles, what lending institutions are signed up with, what fees they charge, what their inventory looks like, what their quoting rules on that inventory. And it makes it to where anybody in the digital retailing space can quote an accurate payment that accurately reflects what the dealership's willing to do, not just what they think the dealership might be willing to do. And that's made a huge difference for us.
Yeah, it makes sense. How has MarketScan grown and adjusted to marketplace business drivers?
Gosh, the API product has been, MScan API has been really interesting. When everybody started getting in the digital retailing space and we started getting traction, it was kind of like Field of Dreams. We had this vision where if we build it, they will come. Sure. And we didn't know it was going to take this long for them to come, but now they're coming in droves. This past month was the biggest payment calculation month we've had, and we quoted 3.2 billion penny certain payments last month. So that's over 100 million payments a day that we're calculating, and it's for companies that are all over the place, so that's been kind of the biggest growth part for us is this digital retailing space.
Now, we've been teasing them with products.
Right.
Let's talk about culture and give us a little view on what the culture is like here at MarketScan.
It's a wonderfully dysfunctional family. And I say that jokingly, right? We're very, very much a family. If you make it here 6 months, you're pretty much a lifer, and it's great. And we have all walks of life, right? I mean, we have people on our data entry team that aren't quite 5 feet tall, and we've got one guy who's almost 7 feet tall, and they work together, and it's great, and it's funny to watch them, you know. But it is a family. It's kind of zen.
So tell us a little bit about the mix. You have some long-term employees. You have some relatively new employees. Talk to us about how you've assembled that team, what you look for.
So we've got about a dozen people who have been with us for well over a decade. When the 2007 crash happened, we really went into survival mode and development mode. So we went down to a very small core group. And we've grown. We're 55, 60 employees now. And the initial part of that growth was pretty slow. So we added a few people here and there as we needed them. And then in the last year, we've more than doubled our size. And we're looking for, there's 3 criteria for us. The very first one is the culture fit. Are you going to enjoy working here? Are we going to enjoy working with you? And if that's a fit, then the other 2 pieces are: do you have the ability to do the tasks, and can you do them well? And does the mathematics make sense? Sure. Where are you willing to work for what the job pays? Yeah. And if all 3 of those are a yes, it typically works out. So it's been interesting growing. So
you're a proud guy. You should be proud of the company. What makes you the most proud about this company?
Walking in the office and seeing everybody wearing a Market Scan shirt with our logo on it is kind of makes me tear up. It's the people wear them proudly, which is really awesome. And we do fun stuff, like we'll do. When we did NADA, we had jackets done with an NADA logo, and gave everybody in the office a jacket. It's got big embroidery San Francisco thing on the back and the same thing on the front. And you'll come in here, and it doesn't even have to be cool outside. Almost everybody in the building's wearing one, and that's really awesome.
Hey, who won Booth of the Year at that convention?
Oh, the big Booth of the Year at NADA? That was us.
Oh, yeah.
That was us.
That's right.
That's a fun story. So we did NADA in a very, very big way for many years, back before back before my dad got sick.
Sure.
Right? Sure. We really pushed. When I say we pushed the limits, we exceeded the limits of what they would allow us to do. So I was in trouble every NADA show. And literally, they would come and yell at me, and I'd get fined and stuff. And we were kind of the bad boy, I guess, if you want to look at it. So this year, we had the same guy who's done every single booth I've ever done, Jeremy Graham, who's one of my best friends. I told him, I said, look, you got free reign. Just do what you think I'm going to want, and make yourself proud, and it'll be great. And it's the first time I literally didn't have any input, because I'm really very hands-on, right? And he designed this unbelievable booth. So we have this really cool booth, and it was big and 2-story with a car in it and all this stuff. And I'm upstairs doing a presentation to some big dealer group or whatever. I don't even remember who I was speaking with. And one of the gals who works with us comes up and says, Rusty, you need to come down here. The people from NAD are here to talk to you. And I'm thinking, oh, come on. I haven't done anything wrong this year, right? And I always did something wrong. And I'm like, how is it possible that I'm in trouble, right? And she says, you're getting an award. I said, you got to be kidding me. So I came downstairs, and they presented us with a big trophy. And it's like, wow. The first time in my whole history with NADA that they came and talked to me that I wasn't in trouble, they gave us a trophy. So that was very special.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Also want to bring up the work environment here. It's really terrific. What's your key to creating an environment that harvests and nurtures innovation?
So experience, I think. I have a phrase that I use, which is wisdom is one of those things you gain immediately after you need it, right? Yeah. I've been in this space for 30 plus years, and I've made almost every mistake you can make, So learning from those and taking a lot of feedback from our team members, what do you like? When we took over this space, we literally gutted it and started from scratch. So we had a clean slate. And we were able to do some fun stuff and ask them, what do you like, what works, what doesn't work. So we implemented almost all of the feedback that we got from our teammates and came up with a space that works well and looks good at the same time.
Rusty, how does your team take a customer approach to new services and products that you guys develop?
So it depends on the target, right? Most of the customer approach is, okay, what is the customer looking for, and how do we help them? We've been supporting the car dealership facing industry for 30 years, so we have a pretty good handle on who we're going to be working with and what their personalities are, and as you can imagine, they're pretty vast, in the car business. And it's a completely different set of people we work with our MScan API product, which are mainly technologists. And so we have to kind of be a chameleon. We need to make sure that when we're talking to them, that we're trying to look at what their issues are from their eyes first. That way we know how to help them or how to fix their problem.
Well, for those who don't know Market Scan, what would a 30, let's say 60-second elevator pitch sound like?
We are a software company that specializes in the aggregation of data that can influence automobile payments, and we calculate more payments than every other technology in the industry combined.
Yeah, and who are your primary clients, customers?
So we have 3 verticals that we market. We market directly to car dealerships, which we've been doing, that's the longest part of our business. We market directly to technology companies with our latest product, which is our MScan API product. And we have products that are analytics products that we market to lending institutions and manufacturers to assist them in creating their offerings, rebates, incentives offerings, rates, finance lease, balloon note offerings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we're about to get into Market Scan's product offerings, but before we do that, let's expand a little bit on the 2 main core components of the company, and that would be big data, and the other one would be calculation technology.
Sure. So the big data part, I think we kind of touched on. We track 5 or 4 classes of data, which is the manufacturer class, and I'll rattle them off real quick. So
Sure.
year, make, model, trim, description, cost, MSRP, shipping, gas guzzler, right? I know that sounds kind of crazy, but we say it a million times a day.
Sure.
We also track all the complex elements of the manufacturer class of data, which are all of the rebates and incentives down to a very, very granular level, even down to the VIN-specific level. From the lending institution side, we track every parameter, policy, and factor that can influence a lease, finance, or balloon note program for new or used cars from every lending institution in the country. And then the 3rd class is the municipality class. So we track every law, rule, regulation, calculation methodology, and tax percentage rate for every inch of the country. And the last class is the dealership class. So we track all the terms and conditions under which dealerships are willing to do business. And that's the big data side. And that's a monstrous database that changes every single day. We're in here on a Saturday, and it's the 1st of the month. And we've got a whole team of people here who are running our process to make sure that the programs that go into effect midnight tonight, our customers have access to. And then from the technology side of it, or calculation side of it, that's where the real magic is, right? And we have more products and lines of code, if you will, that are internal products that we utilize much, much more than external products that we sell, because we have to develop software to aggregate all this information. We develop tools to help our team members do their job in every department: accounting, human resources, obviously data. And then the biggest, or the most, I don't want to say most crucial piece for us, but the part that we sell is the calculation engine. And our calculation engine is really slick. I'd love to be able to, sit up here and say, yeah, I did a great job. I wrote it. I'm the man. Truth of the matter is, I wrote the very first one. I think I did a pretty nice job. But the team of developers we've got now that have built the one that we have, it's amazing. Not so much that it generates different payments, because we both generate the same payments. The difference is they're able to generate tens of thousands of payments that are requested from our API partners in seconds. And that's why we're able to calculate, over 100 million payments a day, as opposed to, who knows how long it would take with the one that I wrote. So
How does focus on those two sets of elements help set you apart from the competition? Because there's competition out there.
oh yeah.
And so if you could elaborate a little bit about that, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, so if we look at our core product now, which is our MScan API product,
Yeah.
there's 4 different companies in the space outside of MarketScan that have a data offering, and there is an element to our MScan API product, the data offering. There's much different. There's 10 different levels of it, so you can get everything from super basic data all the way up to us doing all the heavy lifting to do the calculations. But the 4 different companies that are out there are AIS, Chrome, DealerTrack, and JTO. And AIS and DealerTrack are owned by Cox. All 4 of those companies have some commonalities, and the biggest commonality is that each one of them has about 100 people in a data entry department manually entering data. We don't do that, right? We automated all of this stuff. So there's 2 teams in India, there's 1 team in the Philippines, and there's 1 team in Santa Barbara. And that's the biggest difference with us. So having invested all of this time, energy, and resources and money into building tools to electronically aggregate this data is what truly sets us apart from a data offering. Our data is much, much more timely and much more accurate, and much more robust than even the combined data sets of which you get from those 4 competitors, which are our competitors. And then if you go beyond the data offering, right, and you start looking into the calculation engine process, we're the only company in the industry that has an API for calculating all the payments that takes everything into consideration. Everybody else provides data, and the technology companies have to build the calculation engine themselves. And that's a daunting task that took us many, many, many years, to perfect. So
Let's back up just a little teeny bit, because you were an early pioneer in big data. And I was just wondering if you had an aha moment when you realized, you know what, focus on big data is going to give me a clear market advantage.
several aha moments. Literally, the first one was when I was in high school. And it wasn't really big data back then. I mean, it was big data for back then because you had a 720K fit on a floppy disk if you had the really cool floppy disk, right? So, and I got an iPhone with 128 gig or whatever on it. But when I wrote the very, very first version of this for my dad in high school, my dad was literally killing all the car dealers in Atlanta. He had an independent leasing company, and they were leasing 400 to 500 cars a month without any inventory. And they were buying cars from dealerships and leasing them to those dealerships' customers for a lot less money than the dealerships could lease them themselves. And they couldn't figure it out, right? Because they didn't know. They didn't know to look outside of the captive lending institution. They didn't know how to structure them. So that was the first part that got me kind of excited about this technology. And then the move to California, and we saw it really starting to play out. That was an aha moment. Before the time leading up to September 11th, September 11th changed the auto industry because leasing kind of stopped. But the time leading up to September 11th, we had everybody, and we were responsible for, I say responsible, our customers were responsible for 85, 90% of all leases written in the country. And the profits that they were making off of it, because they were using science to calculate it, it was amazing. And then when we decided to go through the process of electronically aggregating the data, that was the biggest aha moment for us, because our data set just, the size of our data grew immensely when we could ingest the kind of fringe case type data, and that's been pretty cool.
How did the product portfolio evolve from targeting the retail side of automotive to lenders and OEMs as well?
So we had a couple of lenders come to us very early. When we first moved to California, we literally exited Atlanta within a year, and we're only in California. So we had several lending institutions that had very aggressive programs that weren't the captive lender. It wasn't GM AC or Nissan Motor Acceptance Corp or whoever at the time. And 2 of them were Sanwa Bank and Wells Fargo. And they came to us, both of them, and said, hey, look, we either need to use your software or we got to figure out how to get our programs out of your software. And we guess you probably already figured out the latter, so we need to use it. And gosh, this goes back to 91, 92. The guy we worked with at Sanwa Bank is a guy named Steve Hamburg, who actually later came to work with us before he retired. And the other guy who was in charge of all of automotive lending for Wells Fargo was a guy named Dick Schliesman, and he's one of my best friends. And so when the lending institutions had the ability to play poker and see what everybody's cards were, it really changed the landscape. And so that kind of evolved into us building a product that wasn't our desking tool, our dealer-facing desking product that the lending institutions would use, but it's a product called M-Gauge that uses the same technology, all the calculations and data and everything, but presents the data in a manner that really meets the needs of the lending institutions. And that product was built in a lending institution, CULIC, Credit Union Leasing Associates, which they do all the credit union leasing, and they're in San Diego. So we developed that product with their assistance. What is it you want? How can we help you? How can we make it better? And then once we built it and they started using it, then we started selling it to everybody. And a lot of the big lenders, Ally Financial, U.S. Bank, are big customers of ours in that product. And we get to work very closely with them and kind of see their inner workings, which is very exciting for us.
But it's not just lenders and OEMs; it's also technology partners as well.
Oh yeah. So the lending facing product M-Gauge, right? We have three verticals. We've got the dealership, we've got the lending institutions, the OEMs, and then obviously technology companies. And that's our M-Scan API product, which is our core product now.
So you're experiencing some really, really rapid growth right now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What are you relating it to? Good looks?
Yeah, God, if it was that, I'd be flipping hamburgers at In-N-Out right now. We had a vision about powering other companies, right? We've always had the premier desking tool in the industry, and the good side and the bad side of that is it's what we do and we do it very well, but we don't couple it with a CRM solution or accounting and all the other stuff. So we were competing against companies that had a product that wasn't as good as ours, but was good, and they were giving it away for free. And so our market share was slipping, and we had that. Well, maybe we either, if we can't beat them, join them thing. So we started powering them, and then when all the digital retailing companies came out of the woodwork, they gobbled it up, and it's been unbelievable. We had last month. We've had this plateau. I'm not going to share what the number is with you, but it's one that's eluded us for over a decade, and we keep trying and pushing, and we get close and we get close, and we haven't broken it. And last month, we broke it, shattered it, right? 125% of the goal, and it's the best month we've had in 11 years. So,
meteoric growth.
Thank goodness.
And something that's helping that to feed that growth, I think, is the amount of internet companies that are offering car shopping services. How does that open up opportunity for MarketScan?
It's the wild, wild west for us. Literally, it is. It's unbelievable. The biggest issue that we hear from car dealerships all the time and from consumers is I get quoted something online and I get to the store and it's different.
Right.
And most often, there's no malice in that process at all, right? The dealership's not bait and switching. And there are some bad apples out there like there are in any industry, but for the most part, they're not. What's happening is the terms and conditions under which they're willing to sell their vehicles aren't being respected or aren't being represented. So, which causes a big problem both sides of the industry, right? If your payments that you're quoting are too low, then the consumer's expectations are unrealistically managed, right? So they come in the dealership and they're upset. You said it was $350, and now you're telling it's $450. The other side to it is you have digital retailing companies out there that are quoting payments that are too high. And then you have a dealership that's missing business they rightfully should earn if their terms and conditions were respected. And we've got the only technology that bridges that gap. And because of that, it's been unbelievable how many companies are jumping ship from the other providers because they want to solve that problem for their dealers and they want the consumer to have a great journey. And it's literally, it's one of those situations where there are no losers if it's done right. Everybody wins. So.
It's time we get into the product offering section. You've alluded to several products. Let's talk about M-desking right now because it was introduced first, and it seems to be an extension of your very first product, which was Lease Profit. Tell us a little bit about M-desking.
M-desking is the evolution of Lease Profit. It's actually the evolution of AutoScan, which we talked about early on, right? Yep. It addresses the needs of the sales management and the finance management staff in a car dealership in a very scientific way. We take every piece of information that can influence a transaction, and we put the dealership in a position where they can accomplish one of two things, which is they can generate the cheapest monthly payment possible for the desired profit margin that they want to achieve, which is the best shot they've got to earn in the customer's business. And the other side to it is they can take every commitment from every customer, they can turn it into the most profitable lease financial balloon note program from any lending institution in the world that's active in their marketplace and they're signed up with. And that's done because of all the data and calculation technology that we have in the background. And it's been a wonderful product for us for 30 years.
So M-Quote is sort of a hand-in-hand product with M-desking.
Yeah.
Let's talk M-Quote.
So M-Quote's a fun one. One of the biggest complaints that consumers have in their new car buying experience is that the sales process took too long, right? And NADA has done some interesting studies, and it's been a while since I looked at them, but I'm sure they haven't changed much. So I'll ask you a question, you can guess. What's the number of minutes that an average consumer spends unattended during their new car buying experience?
I'll say 22.
170. Okay. Average car buying experience, right, is a 3 to 4 hour experience, most of which the consumer's sitting alone. And it happens on a busy Saturday where the sales manager's backed up and the sales guy says, I'll be right back. I'm going to go to bat for you. I'm going to get you a good deal. And he's sitting there in line 15, 20 minutes at a time, 4, 5, 6 times in a row, right, before you go into F&I. Yeah. So M-Quote eliminates that completely. It puts the salespeople in a position where they never turn their back on a consumer, right? So they can sit down with any web-enabled device. It could be an iPhone, it could be an iPad, it could be a PC, it doesn't matter. Sure. And say, okay, here's the vehicle, and get some basic information from you. We'll go for a test drive. We're going to send this to my manager. And we send it to the manager, and the manager now knows what the scenario is. Here's my customer, here's my credit score. You can even sign for a credit application, that kind of stuff. But it allows him to present multiple lease options, multiple finance options, and even a cash purchase option electronically. And the salesperson will get a notification on his phone or his iPad or whatever, a pop-up that says, hey, we've got some numbers for you. And they can just sit there and show it to the customer. Here's your lease options. Here's 16 lease options. Here's 16 finance options. Here's a cash purchase option. And it really doesn't matter to us which method you choose to acquire your new vehicle. We just want to be your dealer of choice. So of all these options, what best fits your budget? And gives them the ability to do that electronically. The one thing you'll know is that you show numbers to a customer who's buying a car, and the first time you show them a number, it's almost unheard of that they go, really?
Yeah.
I'll take that one, right? They've been conditioned to beat us up, to grind,
Sure.
right? So they can say, look, I like this 36 months with $500 up front, but I'm not going to pay $450 a month. I need to be at $400 or $425 or whatever. And the consumer can literally touch it and say, okay, I want $425 a month, and submit it, and it goes to the sales manager. Sales manager gets a pop-up, and he can rework the deal, see if it makes sense at that commitment. If it does, he can send it back. If not, he can counteroffer at $440, whatever the process is, and it completely eliminates the salesperson from walking back and forth to the desk.
Yeah.
It's all electronic.
Yeah, it makes it a little more of an effective and efficient process. Let's talk about M-Scan API. Was that developed as an evolution of M-desking, or was it more of an expansion of digital retailing, or a combination of the two?
So both, combination of the two. The M-Scan API is our technology partner-facing product. Every product that we have, our M-Gauge product, which is our lender and OEM-facing product, and our M-desking product, is powered by M-Scan API. So we have one technology code base, data set, and everything. Okay. And it has been we've gotten more traction with that product than pretty much any product we've ever launched.
You mentioned M-Gauge. Let's talk a little bit again about M-Gauge. It's just another product in the portfolio. It was designed for automotive lenders and OEMs, correct?
Yes.
What makes it so special?
So it literally gives the lending institution, if we can break it up lender and OEM, but if we focus on the lending institution, it gives the lending institution the ability to know exactly where their offerings show up in the outside world, right? So one of the things that's a little difficult at first for lenders and manufacturers, big companies to comprehend is it's not how they see the outside world that matters. Mm-hmm. It's how the outside world sees them, right? So they can have all these complex programs that are really specialized and very aggressive. Nobody cares how complex they are. All they care about is what are the results of it, right?
Sure.
So this gives them the ability to see the results of all of their efforts and also see the results of their competitors' efforts at the same time. So they know exactly how they're positioned in the marketplace for every year, make, model trim for new and used cars, for every demographic, credit score, driving habits, zip code. They can look and really drill down. And they can take that information and figure out where they're too competitive versus not competitive enough.
Mm-hmm. Another new product, number 2, we'll call it number 2, is M-Drive. It's also known as What Can I Drive? It's a product, I believe, that was, it's a reflection of how consumers actually buy today. How does it work, and what's the benefit for both the consumer and the retailer?
M-Drive, to me, is the most exciting product we've launched, maybe ever. It's a kind of a dream or vision of ours for several decades until cloud computing came about. The resources to really do it properly didn't exist. But it answers the age-old question of what can I drive, right? So a consumer can say, look, I've got $1,500 up front. I drive 12,000 miles a year. I'm looking for a payment that's between $350 and $375 a month, and I got a 700 credit score. What vehicles are out there that I can drive? And literally instantly, they can get a list, right? If it's at a per dealership level, they get a list of vehicles that fit that consumer's criteria that are in their inventory. And we return that list back sorted by what we call PVI, which is something that we trademarked a while back. PVI stands for Payment Value Index. So it's basically what's the best bang for the buck. If I got a $400 a month payment and I can drive a $50,000 car, or I got a $400 a month payment and I can drive a $15,000 car, which one am I going to get, right? And we're probably going to get the one that's a higher value for the same payment.
Sure.
There's 2 additional elements to What Can I Drive that are super exciting for us, because as we are aggregating all of this inventory and all these quoting rules for the dealers, those elements are taken into consideration when we answer that What Can I Drive question. So from any digital retailing company, if they want to be able to offer a consumer the same thing that we offer a dealer-facing consumer, which is how much up front. I've got $1,500 up front. I want to pay between $375 and $400 a month. I got a 720 credit score. I drive 12,000 miles a year, and I'm willing to drive up to 50 miles to get my new vehicle. Well, we know where they are from their mobile device. If not, they can tell us.
Yeah.
And we know where every piece of inventory is because we're aggregating it. So we can tell them, okay, here's all the vehicles that fit your criteria. And it's instant. It comes back in less than a second. They might get 2,500 cars that fit their criteria. It could be lease, it could be loans, it could be balloon notes, it could be any combination of them. Here's all the vehicles that fit your criteria, sorted by PVI, and go look at them. And then they can say, look, I'm only interested in an SUV, or I'm interested in a red car, or whatever, and we can very rapidly narrow the list down. But we can tell them exactly what they can get, and those payments take everything into consideration: taxes, the fees the dealership charges, all the rebates and incentives, and all the lender specials and everything. So it's a fantastic product.
So will that be a consumer app?
So we have we don't do any consumer.
Because I love it, by the way. That's actually is quite amazing. That's
you.
Extremely impressive.
So we have M-Drive, and What Can I Drive is our app version of it. It's powered by the exact same API, right? Mm-hmm. So M-Drive is surfaced as one of the elements of our API, M-Scan API product. Mm-hmm. We don't currently, and we don't have any plans to build any consumer-facing technologies. We're very much a believer in, if we're going to be powering technologies that are consumer-facing, we don't want to be competing against our customers, which is unique in the industry, right? So all of these digital retailing companies that are ingesting and taking advantage of our API product have the ability to do all these wonderful things and create wonderful user interfaces, user experiences for the consumers out there, and make it look really slick. But at the end of the day, we're the fuel behind it. And the M Drive piece is something we just launched, and we have several technology companies that are in the process of building a user experience around it right now. So we're very much looking forward, and within the next 60 to 90 days, we should see those products launch. And that's going to be very fun for us.
I'd love to talk to you about that in the near future, actually. I think it sounds spectacular. So you also partner with other technology companies. One of them is Texas-based Stone Eagle.
Yes.
And you have developed something called Improve. It's a business analysis tool, correct?
Yeah, diagnostic tool.
Okay.
Yeah, so Stone Eagle is a company that's very much like ours. It's family owned. I think we started within 90 days of each other, so we've both been around for a long time. A bunch of old geezers, some of us, and they do a wonderful job in the finance and insurance aftermarket space with warranty products and that kind of stuff. So Stone Eagle has a product called Secure Metrics, and it takes all of the information out of the dealership management system for every transaction that they've done to show them their penetration in F&I products in the finance office. So we did what we kind of call a technical or technological collaboration with Stone Eagle, where we take that information and then we run it through our MScan API engine on the data that was effective at the date and time that that particular transaction was written. And we can show them whether there are any lost opportunities. Should they have used a different lending institution? Should they have used a different term? Were there rebate monies that are out there and stuff? And we have found, on average, that there's over $500 in additional profit available on average on every transaction. And what's interesting is there's not 500 on average, meaning that you don't have 475, 525.
Yeah.
What you've got is you've got 80% of the transactions out there. There's no room for improvement at all. And 20% of them, there's $3,000, $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 left on the table. And it doesn't take many of those to realize, maybe we should be more scientific about how we approach our transactions.
Sort of answers my next question on some level, but I think you could probably expand on it a little bit, and that's Improve, taking data and analytics to the next level for the automotive retailing space. That's obviously one example. I assume that there's far more.
Yeah, the MScan API literally is like the big steam engine that runs a factory, right? Back in the old days, right? So you got this big machine back there spinning, and then you can power all these different things from it. And the opportunities for us to power different technologies are almost endless. Obviously, the M Drive got powered by MScan API. Improve's powered by MScan API. MGauge is powered by MScan API. Our desking tools all are powered by MScan API. And we have several products on the horizon, but they're all powered by the same technology. And one of the things that's really fun for us, especially with our technology partners, we'll sign up a new technology company, and we go through a big process of helping them integrate MScan API into their ecosystem. So we assign people from our development team to work with them, people from our support department, our training department, our data team, all to help them integrate our MScan API products properly. And what's really fun for us is to see what they do with it. We have a vision of how we think companies are going to use our products, but every once in a while we get completely surprised. If somebody uses it in a manner we never dreamt of, and we're like, wow, that's really cool. And it's very fun because it kind of shows us how good we are at what we do when we can see what somebody can do and kind of take our engine and take it to the next level. It's really a lot of fun.
Which makes sense. When I think of market scan, I think of consistency, and part of consistency is being able to reinforce yourself as an authority in the industry, and you've been able to do that. What do you attribute that to?
Longevity in the space, being in the space for a little over 3 decades, we've obviously learned an awful lot. And our whole philosophy is you learn every day, and keep pushing, So we're constantly trying to push the envelope of how much data we can aggregate electronically, how many more different ways that we can provide solutions to either our direct clients or our technology partners that can solve problems for them that haven't been solved before.
Makes sense. So what's your approach to helping customers in various categories?
Depends on the customer, right? So the dealer-facing side is pretty easy because we've been doing it for so long. The tack that we have to take is that when a support call comes in or a question comes in, we try to look at it from the asker's perspective, right? What are they feeling right now? What are they experiencing? What's their level of frustration, and how do we solve this problem? The goal is obviously to have everybody happy. That's impossible, but we try to get very close. And if we look at it from the customer's perspective, it certainly sheds a lot of light on how we should handle the problem or address it.
Sure, makes sense. So how have you designed MarketScan's technology to be intuitive for customers so there isn't such a steep learning curve?
The dealer-facing products are relatively easy to train because they were written out of the requests that we've gotten for features over 3 decades. And the whole process is we try to make the software package work and look and think the way that the actual sales process in the dealership flows, right?
Sure.
So that part's been relatively easy. Some of the difficulties are going through and getting the dealership, especially for someone who's new to us, getting them to understand what they're seeing, right? Because there's so many different lending institution programs that are out there. It's very common for us to get a call and somebody's screaming, this information is not right. And it's right, it's just information they've never seen before. It's very fun to watch the dynamic from a new customer, first 90 days, right? Because the first 2 weeks, you get a bunch of calls. This stuff's wrong, you guys don't know what you're doing. And then, of course, we send over the supporting documentation, we explain it to them. And then towards the tail end of the 90 days, those calls really trickle off. And instead of it being combative, it's, hey, what am I missing, right? And when they cross that chasm, it really solidifies our relationship with them.
So aside from all the normal training that you do when you bring people on board, how do you train people to become power users? From a normal user to a power user to fully understand that the platform's available?
So we have a whole bunch of online curriculum. So we have basic training online. We've got some very advanced training. And a lot of the advanced training courses that we have come out of what we've learned from our dealer customers. When we see dealers, we have a dealer customer who's really doing a great job with our tool, and maybe even using it in a manner that was something that we had never thought of. We ask their permission to implement that in our training curriculum, and if they're okay with it, we create a course around it and go through the process of posting them online.
So let's discuss the evolution of the automotive industry. How are consumer habits influencing the industry, and what will MarketScan's role be in the future?
That's a little bit of the unknown, right? The auto industry has evolved so much more rapidly in the last 5 years than I think anyone anticipated. And it kind of didn't really evolve all that rapidly leading up to it, which is unfortunate. We've always tried to be on the leading edge of pushing that technology forward. But the biggest driver has been the consumer. The consumers, everybody is connected now through social media, and everybody's impatient. I'm very impatient. I'm the guy who stands in front of the microwave and tells it to hurry up. But Google has made everybody impatient. What used to take 6 weeks to research, I can tell you on my phone, while I'm waiting for my French fries to come out, right? So the consumer has driven the whole process to be a streamlined. They want an Amazon buying experience when they go to get a car. They don't want 3 hours of arguing with somebody, wondering whether they're getting ripped off or not. And that desire has really driven, that consumer desire has driven our focus, which is power all this. And I think the second part of your question is where does MarketScan go?
Exactly.
This, which is, I think we continue on the path that we're on. We literally set out a vision to power this part of the industry, and we're at the very early stages of this journey. And we see most of the path already, which I think is really crucial. And the one thing that's great is, as with every mile of this journey, we see other opportunities and we see other technologies that we want to develop, and we put them on a list and prioritize them, and we knock them down as fast as we can.
Yeah, it's a matter of staying ahead of trends, also, or identifying trends, right? Which brings to mind leasing. What do you see what do you see as similarities between leasing, let's say, 2 decades ago and leasing today?
So there's two pieces to it. Leasing historically is a 7-year cycle. Every 7 years, leasing is either really high or really low. Right now, we're on an upswing. I think probably by mid-year next year will be the peak, which may be the highest penetration that we've seen in 7 years, and it'll start to taper off. So the consumer appetite for leasing is a 7-year sine wave. It's super consistent. It has been my entire life. The landscape is identical and extraordinarily different at the exact same time, meaning that the calculations that are used for figuring a lease payment, that really hasn't changed or evolved. There are fewer lending institutions than there once were, but there are thousands of times more lending institution programs than there ever have been. So the ones who have really survived and thrived are taking tools like our M-Gauge tool and coming up with these super specialized programs like sniper targeting, right?
Yeah.
I want Honda Accord LX 4-door sedan automatics with leather in 91361 zip code for this credit score, and I want to get all that business.
Sure.
They can do that now. And they can do that without buying a whole bunch of other business that they don't want. Yeah. So in order to do that, they need a special for that vehicle, for that consumer, and that zip code. Yeah. And we track all that. So that part's been really amazing for us, because the more complex the lending institution's offerings get, and the more complex the rebates and incentives get, which are all over the map, the more valuable a tool like ours is, because it's impossible to do that stuff yourself. You have
track
to
it all.
Yeah, you got to let a computer do it for you.
Where do you see automotive retailing going in the next decade?
I see a lot of consolidation in the marketplace. I think that the dealerships where there's 1 or 2 or 3 rooftops that are owned by a family, the ones that have done a great job, I see them as surviving and doing really well. The ones that don't, I see them as either going away or getting gobbled up by some of the bigger players. I see a lot of everything going towards digital retailing. The consumers want an Amazon buying experience. The dealers that are on the forefront of trying to provide that or something close to it are cleaning up right now, and I see them as really being the leaders. We will see more evolution in the next 10 years in the automotive space than we've seen in the entire history of the automotive space, and that's going to be very exciting.
I'm going to put a crystal ball on here right now. I'm going to have you take a look at it and tell me what automotive retail sales are going to look like in 2030.
If you take the sci-fi version of me in it, I don't
Jets
know.
And cars.
I think we'll all be flying around in drones, to be honest with you. And I hope we're doing the leasing and financing software on the drones. If it continues on the same path, I mean, it's 10 years from now, so who knows? I see a bunch of electric vehicles. Everybody's getting into the electric vehicle market. Elon Musk, unbelievable visionary, did a great job, I think, in advancing battery technology, which was crucial for the cars to really perform the way they perform. And I see a lot of leasing, maybe shorter term leasing. I see potentially some mobility, subscription type mobilities that are out there that are going to come into play. I don't know if it's going to be so much on the new vehicles as much as on used, but it's going to be interesting. I can't wait.
How will it affect your business model?
I don't know. I guess it depends on if they zig or they zag. We're not a giant company. We're not a tiny company, but we're a very agile company. And kind of, part of me says, gosh, it'd be nice if you could just kind of take a breather, right? I haven't taken a breather in 30 years. It's just not in me, So I hope the industry goes in a direction that nobody's expecting, because if we do what we've been doing, which is react to it properly and have technology that addresses that needs, that carves out another niche for us.
Do you think that blockchain is going to have any impact on the automotive industry whatsoever?
I don't know if it's going to have I don't know if it's going to be an impact as much as it is just an evolution. We've been aggressively digging into doing some blockchain stuff, and blockchain was such a huge buzzword 18 months ago, right? And once the buzzword bubble kind of dropped, it's just like, this is another technology that is a really secure way of doing transactions, even microtransactions, because it's very, very inexpensive to implement. At the end of the day, the ability to do everything electronically, which is submit a credit application directly to a lending institution for a yes, no, or maybe, and not having to go through an aggregator. The ability to do a smart contract electronically for a lease, a finance, for a balloon. The ability for the flooring company to get paid electronically. For the trade, if there's a payoff on a trade, for that to be able to happen electronically. For the DMV fees to be able to happen electronically. All that kind of stuff. All that can be facilitated in a blockchain environment. And I think that's probably where the industry's headed. But I think it's going to take longer than all of us would like, because there's a lot of companies that have to accommodate for that. And a lot of these companies are very, very large companies, and they don't move as rapidly as small companies do.
Your trajectory of growth over the last 30 years has been very steep. The company has grown phenomenally. You've got happy employees. You're a top shelf company. Have you ever thought of doing something different?
Not once. And I know that sounds crazy. This is the only job I've ever had, right? I was a very good car stereo installer, right? But after college, this is the only thing I've ever done. And I can't wait to get here every day. It's so much fun. We're not doing the same thing we were doing 30 years ago, but we kind of are at the same time. Yeah. And I hope 10 years from now I'm sitting here talking at this table with you, Kelly, telling you how much fun I'm having, because I'm having a ball right now.
What do you see as the next frontier to conquer?
I don't know. I think it's going to present itself. The one that we're working on right now, literally, we're in the early stages and we're getting a ton of traction. Kind of hoping it's still along the lines of what we're doing, which is us powering all these different technologies. But I don't know how the industry is going to change. I have my vision of what might happen. We've discussed that.
Yeah.
And I might be 0% right on that one. We don't know. But it doesn't matter. The industry is going to change, and market scan is going to change with it. So
we're going to find out a little bit more about what you like to do for fun. We know you're a speed guy. You have a knack for fast toys. Has that always been the case?
Oh yeah. My dad, early on, before he started his leasing business, he had a Lincoln Mercury dealership when the OPEC oil crisis hit. So you can imagine how well that worked out, right? Yeah. Then 7 seconds after that, he had a used car lot, right? And I was, I think, maybe 4 years old, and he got a mini bike, a little doodle bike, lawnmower powered, Briggs and Stratton powered thing traded in, and I was 4, and he threw a helmet on me and gave it to me. So I learned to ride a motorcycle before I learned to ride a bicycle, and grew up racing them, and been involved in racing my entire life.
So you also have a mini bike that I favor.
Yeah.
It's in your garage, I would assume, or somewhere, tool shed perhaps. What is it?
So it's a 1971 Honda Trail 7.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and it's red. So my dad figured out I had a knack for riding when I was very, very young, and got me involved in racing. And so I raced motocross for years, raced professionally for a few years. thought that's what I was going to do for a living, and ended up having 3 stints in a wheelchair because of them. And one of them was actually not all that long ago. And then I finally said, I'm not going to try and keep up with my kids anymore. But this red Honda Trail 70 my dad had as a pit bike the whole time. And when I was in high school, it got stolen. And so we went camping. We go camping in the desert with the kids and the dirt bikes and the ATVs and the side-by-sides and all that stuff. And there was a guy out there that had one, same color, same year, everything. And I ended up coming home with it that trip. I said, I'm buying your bike. He goes, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And we ended up working out a deal and ended up becoming pretty good friends. But I have it, and it needs some love. I'm probably going to get it restored one of these days. But yeah.
What makes you tick, professionally and in general?
So professionally, I love to be challenged every day. I love to solve complex problems with really bright people. It's very fun. That's what makes me tick. I think that if you can do that, everything else works itself out, right? Find a problem that needs a solution, come up with an eloquent solution, surround yourself with the smartest minds you can, be their cheerleader, and the customers will come, the customer satisfaction will come, the money will come, all that stuff just happens. It's the result, it's not the goal. And that's what makes me tick professionally. Personally, family, I've got a very crazy family. My kids are nuts. I'm not sure where they get it.
No.
My wife has some pretty good suggestions on that one, but that's what makes me tick. I've got 4 kids. I've got a 25-year-old daughter, a 22-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 16-year-old son, and they're all very different, and I'm very proud of all of them. And I'm having a ton of fun with my son. He just got his driver's license, and I've got him racing Porsches, and he's very good. Probably going to be a lot quicker than his old man pretty soon. And that's a big sense of pride for me. And my 17-year-old daughter, kind of the same thing on a dirt bike, right? Really fast.
Really?
Probably faster than I was when I was racing professionally. And I won't let her go race at that level just because I know what the consequences are for not pulling it off. And the bikes and stuff are so good now that you're not 20 feet in the air like we were when I was a kid. You're 60 feet in the air, and if you mess that one up, that was my last stint in a wheelchair, was trying to do that. I don't want them to go through that. So
Let's play a little word association. I'm going to throw a word out there, and you give me the first thing that comes to your mind, okay? Apple.
Stephen Jobs,
Walt Disney.
visionary,
Bill Gates.
brilliant.
California. Come on.
80-20.
80-20. Explain.
Okay, 80% of California is absolute zen. So you cannot get better weather. It's fantastic. The auto market here is the richest, most sophisticated auto market in the world, which is super exciting. I remember when I landed on the ground on November 19th of 90. I'm driving up from LAX. And I got freight trained by Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Rolls Royces, Porsches, all the cool stuff. The stuff that you would see once every 2 or 3 months in Georgia, right? I got passed in a 10-mile stretch, like, wow. And being a car guy, I think this is great. Government in California, not crazy about. But there's a lot of talented people here, and so you put up with it. And,
Okay.
The 20% and 80% is about an even balance.
Yeah, we do. Your team.
Phenomenal.
Racing.
Zen.
Incentives.
Crazy.
Big data.
The answer to everything.
The automotive industry.
Home.
The most fun you've ever had.
Market scan.
AI.
Big part of the future.
A few more. Retirement.
Probably about a week after I'm dead.
Fatherhood.
Greatest thing I ever did.
Favorite food.
Sushi.
Favorite car.
That's like asking me what my favorite kid is, right? So there's a few. The successor to this car was a car that we campaigned in 2003. And It is the only single GT car to win a Triple Crown on U.S. soil. And Triple Crown is a manufacturer's title, team championship, and driver's championship. Most Rolex series and IMSA, it was ALMS and IMSA and Rolex back then, teams had at least 2 cars and sometimes 3. That season was a 14-race season, and Court Wagner and Brent Martini, who were the 2 drivers, took 12 poles and 12 first places with that car. It dominated the series. I ordered it from the factory new, and with the exception of when they raced it, it's never been out of my possession. And so that one, pretty special to me and pretty special to Market Scan. Market Scan was a sponsor. There's a few others. I've got a 1958 Devon D, which is a very odd car. They only made 7 of them. And I've had it for 20 years, and my son, his name is Devon, and he's named after the car. And it's his car now, eventually, right? I mean, it'll be passed down to him if he outlives me.
Yeah.
But that one's a pretty special one. And then, you know, all the goofy ones, each one's got its own personality, but those are the 2 that are most special.
Favorite beverage?
Politically correct. I love water. I like really good vintage Bordeaux's.
How about favorite vacation?
Don't really take them. I'm starting to. 30 years, or almost 31 years of doing this, and I've taken 3 2-week vacations. The last vacation we did was last summer, and I took 2 weeks off, and it took me a long time to unplug. And we went to Atlanta and visited with my brother for a night, and then drove to Chattanooga, spent a couple nights there, and then went to Nashville. Spent 3 nights in Nashville and a couple nights in Memphis. Saw all of Tennessee, which I hadn't been to Tennessee since I was a kid, and that was very fun. Kids had a great time. But I don't know. My favorite vacation hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Rusty.
Wow, I wasn't expecting you to ask it that way. I don't know. Little nuts, right? ADD. Very passionate about this place. You know, I'm very lucky. I've got. I literally have a family with about 60 members, right? I've got the 5 of us, and I got the 55 people here. And with the exception of where I see them, there's not much of a distinction for me. So that's pretty cool. I'm pretty blessed.
Your dad?
My mentor, my best friend, my business partner, Pioneer Leasing, absolutely brilliant. Was very lucky to have an opportunity to work with him all those years. And he was very lucky to have the opportunity to work with me as well.
Yeah. No question about it.
No, I say that in jest. You know, we used to joke. He had this unbelievable ability to negotiate. I mean, he's the best negotiator ever. And he could negotiate and get screaming deals, and people were just glad to let him buy stuff from them for nothing, right? Or pay too much for stuff from him. And we always joke, because he was very, very good at doing what he did, which was running the right side of the business, and I was pretty good at running the left side of business. And we used to always joke and said, you know, if you ran the left side and I ran the right side, we'd probably still be working together, but we'd have a hamburger joint somewhere, because he was terrible at technology and running the sales department, that kind of stuff. That's not my expertise. And thank God we got Steve Smythe, our CEO here, who's done a great job filling my dad's shoes.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy. Yeah. If you were going to write your own legacy and your impact in the automotive industry, what would it say?
He wrote the book on leasing and changed the way people buy cars for the better. That's what I hope it could read.
Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure meeting with you and having this conversation.
Thanks.
Great success in the future.
I appreciate it.